Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back once again to the Ora News broadcast. It is 6 o'clock, and that means it's time for our translated English news edition. And as usual, I'm Daniel Cook, your host. Today, Prime Minister Rama has announced that there will be new measures against the private healthcare sector if they refuse to use cash registers. In a meeting against informality in the health sector, Prime Minister Rama again warned about huge fines for businesses that are not issuing sales receipts. He announced that the fines will range from 5 million to 100 million old lek, depending upon the type of informality. In clarification, he said that businesses that do not issue sales receipts will be fined 5 million old lek, and businesses that present false inventory numbers will be fined 100 million. The Prime Minister warned that tax inspectors who have a high level of informality in the areas that they are responsible for will face prison time. The nation's leader also gave some of the positive reasons for this fight against informality being so important. He said that the action will bring better and safer medicines to the country because the government will be able to put a stop to those who are selling pharmaceuticals informally. In just the first 6 days of the operation, the Albanian government has collected $14 million more in taxes than they collected a year ago. The Prime Minister believes that this is the direct result of the operation. He also commented on a concern that has been voiced by many business owners, which is the high price of the cash registers that they are now obligated by law to buy. He announced that anyone who has not purchased one yet can do so for €50 less. According to Instat, Albania's inflation rate has remained constant during the month of August at about 1.9%, which is below the minimum target set by the Bank of Albania. The data shows that food prices have increased and that this has been the primary factor in keeping inflation low, as the Minister of Finance argued a few days ago. Minister Tsani explained to reporters that the inflation being below the minimum target set by the Bank of Albania was the result of lower prices. He pointed out the price of tomatoes as an example. The latest data from the National Institute of Statistics shows that inflation in August was lower than the level recorded last year and below 2%, which was the BOA target. Instat reports that inflation would have been much lower if two categories had not had significant impact: the tobacco and food industries. In August, food and beverages rose by 1.65%, and the subgroup vegetables and potatoes recorded the biggest increase at 18.4%, including the tomatoes mentioned by Mr. Tsani. Their price did not, in fact, decrease, but rather increased during this period. Beyond specific products like tomatoes, it's a fact that low inflation has been a concern for a long time in the Albanian economy. This shows a decline of consumption because of reduced income, but also uncertainties about the future, as the Bank of Albania indicated in its latest report. Albania's politicians have responded to the ODIHR report on the June 21st elections with a variety of interpretations. The Foreign Minister Dietmir Bushati spoke about improvements in the administration of elections, while the opposition considered it to be a dark stain on the Albanian electoral process. The Foreign Minister Bushati read the ODIHR report with a positive spirit, lingering over the improvements that are mentioned, which according to him are clearly highlighted. He declared that ODIHR mission will be coming to Tirana to give recommendations so that the government can formulate a clear action plan for the next elections. Bushati said, "The report highlights the progress in the electoral campaign in Albania and recommends some steps that we must follow in the future. The government is willing to further consolidate the electoral process based upon specific recommendations of the report," Bushati said. The Democratic Party had a decidedly less favorable view of the report, saying that it was a confirmation of the violations of democracy on June 21st. The Democratic chairman Lulzim Basha declared that the report is the darkest stain on Albanian electoral processes since 2003. Mr. Basha feels that the report indicates that the elections in Albania were not free and fair because the government violated the basic standards of democratic elections, setting the democracy of the country back many steps. According to Basha, the report concludes that the public administration employees were not free to vote without fear of punishment by the government. And this, according to him, is not because of the lack of legislation, but the lack of goodwill from Rama and Mehta. Thirdly, Basha says that the report indicates that the government fought against the voters and the opposition. He says that the voters' list was politicized, and the government recruited gangs and gave them the protection of the police. Mr. Basha says that this party is determined, together with the people, by any force or instrument, to return free and honest elections to the country. Prime Minister Rama has reacted to this statement on his Facebook account. "Poor DP," he writes, "you do not know what you are talking about." The Socialist Movement for Integration also reacted to the ODIHR report. The SMI Vice Chairman, Petrit Vassili, asked the politicians to read the report without their emotions and to begin work on making the improvements that the report recommends. The Interior Minister, Saimir Tahiri, met today with the ambassadors of the EU countries in Tirana. In a brief statement to the media after the meeting, Mr. Tahiri said that they spoke about the priorities of the Interior Ministry. He made this comment to the press: "With the ambassadors of the European Union, we spoke about a range of issues regarding the priorities of the Interior Ministry in the fight against organized crime and against the cultivation and trafficking of narcotics. We spoke about priorities within the National Bureau of Investigation and the fight against criminal money," Tahiri said. The meeting was held at the headquarters of the European Union in Tirana. The Democratic chairman Lulzim Basha participated today in the ceremony for the 69th anniversary of the Postriba movement in Shkodra. He issued a call to the citizens to rise against the government, saying that they are creating alliances with crime and drug traffickers. Mr. Basha had this to say to the crowd: "Rama and Mehta are robbing the people. They are paying the mafia to keep them in power. The youth must rise against this government. We do not accept dictatorship. Altogether, we will remove them and bring back freedom. Let's end this regime altogether," said Chairman Basha. Today's ceremony included local leaders, MPs, and family members of the martyrs and the formerly persecuted. The Albanian Ombudsman and the OSCE organized a meeting today on the past communism in Albania. The premise of the meeting was that Albania needs to break from its past through the opening of the files from the communist period, a process that is included in the law passed by the parliament some time ago. The German ambassador Hoffmann considered the adoption of this law to be a positive step and declared that the lustration issue must be treated carefully. He made this statement at the meeting: "The communism of the past has always been a delicate subject for Albania, but the approval of the law for opening the files is a positive step, and there should be no debates regarding this issue. I feel sorry for those who were in favor of opening the files and got involved in debates on lustration, which is an issue that should be treated carefully in order to avoid debates." Mr. Raunig, the OSCE ambassador, said that the process of opening the files should continue normally and without debate. The Ombudsman Igli Totezani agreed, declaring that the institution that he leads will submit a new draft law on lustration to the parliament. "Albania must break from its past," he said. "Preparation of a lustration law is one of our duties. We appeal for willpower and consensus, and we will entreat the politicians not to block the lustration law. This law will not provide revenge for the victims, but rather justice," he said. Representatives of the politically persecuted during the communist regime were also invited to today's meeting. Thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. Please join us again tomorrow at the same time for more translated news in English. Thanks, and see you tomorrow.